What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another video for the KX250F build. In this video I'm going to rebuild a shock. I've done these videos before, but there's something a little different about these shocks, so I'll show you guys on the bench here what I got and how this shock is different from most of the other ones I've dealt with. So these shocks are mostly similar to the other ones I've done before. The adjustments are the same, springs the same, the rebound's the same, but the thing that's different about this one is this nitrogen chamber. So usually you'll have a Schrader valve right here, but these ones take a special kind of tool. So I'm gonna take the spring off and then I'll show you guys what it takes to drain this nitrogen bladder here. Before you take these springs off, you want to check your preload length. So just take a tape measure and measure the length from this end of the spring to this end. That'll help you when you put things back together. Just make a quick edit here guys, I forgot to mention this. Make sure you're backing the clickers out all the way on the compression and the rebound. There's two on the compression, so there's the inside clicker, which is the slow compression, and there's the outside one, which is the fast compression, and then there's the rebound on the bottom of the shock there. So make sure you guys are backing them out and record the clicks and turns. I have the factory settings on hand, so I'm able to do it after. So if you guys want to put it back to your settings, just make sure you record it before you take the shock apart. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and measure the spring length here. This just helps when you put the shock back together, get you close to factory settings, which is usually around 10 inches. So we'll see what this one's at here. So this one's at about 10¼ inches. So that's what I'm going to put it back to when I put this shock back together. So I'm going to go ahead and record that, and then I'm going to start backing off these jam nuts to get the spring out. And when you get the spring all the way extended and you get these jam nuts off, the spring will kind of fall down, and right here you got to pop this little ring off, and there's a circlip in here, and that's how you get the spring off. So I'll show you when I get to that. So to get this spring off guys, you want to first start by hitting this jam nut, and in the position I've got it in, I want to hit this way to turn it clockwise to send the jam nut down the threads, like towards the, well, what would be the top of the shock here. So you just hit it with a hammer like this. Till it's nice and loose, then you can just usually do it by hand. If it's really difficult to turn this jam nut, clean the threads out. Sometimes the threads are just really dirty. And that's as far as it wants to let me go. So now I'll just take the whole thing and I'll just turn the whole spring and loosen it off. And again, if this is really tough, then you can just spray some WD-40 or something like that in there to loosen everything up. So you want to back these off to the maximum. And then you can turn your attention up here, and sometimes it takes a little bit to get these out because they're packed with dirt and whatever. So you just push that up, and this ring here will come down, and then it'll reveal a circlip in there. And then you take that off, and then you'll be able to take this ring out, and then you should be able to take your shock off after. But sometimes this is a bit tough to get off because this is all full of dirt and crap and stuff like that over the years. So sometimes you got to give it a little tap with like a dead blow or something like that. So I'm going to put a screwdriver in there and just kind of tap it down. As you can see, there's a ton of dirt falling out, and probably hear it too. Again, these can be a little challenging when you're trying to get them out of there. This one's got a lot of dirt packed in there. Try some penetrating oil here. Leave that sit for a few minutes and see if it'll work itself in there. Alright guys, so I can see a problem already here, which is causing this maybe to be a little hard to get off. So you can see right there, there's a bit of a bend. So something's struck the bottom of this thing here and bent it out. So if I can get it to focus again here, you can see that's all bent out. So I'm gonna have to put that out on the bench and try and straighten that. Alright guys, as you can see, I got a couple of screwdrivers jammed in here to kind of make a platform, because when you're hammering against a spring it doesn't really give you a good hit. So I'm gonna try and just tap around this and see if I can get this ring off here. Starting to move there now. Alright, so now I've got the ring down far enough, I can get this circlip off. Now you might not be able to see it, but there's a circlip exposed here. So there's that circlip. So now I should be able to get this ring off. Now I'm probably going to have to clean this up a little bit and then try and get that off after. Okay, with it cleaned off a little bit here, guys, should be able to just pull the screwdrivers out. And then actually just tap on the top of this piece here, and it should pop down and through there. Just like that. And so this will come out, and then I'll just reposition you guys here. Now you can just go ahead and take the spring right off. And you want to pay attention to how you take these springs off, because I think there's this end here is wider opening and this here is a little slender. So I think if you put it on wrong, I'm gonna put it on the other way, it's really hard to get it on. And actually, yeah, you can't put the spring on wrong, because this top section of the spring won't go over this jam nut. So you have to put it on the proper way to get that to go over it. It just won't fit if you put it on wrong. But, you know, for educational purposes, the bigger end always goes down, and the smaller end this way goes up. And that's it for that section, guys. Actually, I'm gonna make a little note here. These jam nuts have to be on the shock body when you put everything back together. So I'll go through it later again. But as soon as you got this shock body cleaned up and you got your jam nuts cleaned up, put them straight back on, because if you forget, you have to take this whole assembly out again to get these on. So just a little note there. Don't ask me how I know that. So now we can move on to the portion where we drain the nitrogen out of the bladder. But as I was talking about earlier, usually there's a Schrader here, and you can just depress it with a screwdriver and you're done. These are a little different. Not sure why they went this way. They're a bit more of a pain, because you have to buy a tool for that. So I'll show you the tool here. It's this little needle valve right here. So it's got a gauge on it. I'll put a link in the description where you can get this. So this is for draining it and charging it. So you want to be careful with this, because it's got like literally a needle. So how you set it up is you just take this piece off here, and you put the needle on top of this, Then this goes over. Again, be very careful. And then you just thread it on until it's bottomed out. So now what you'll do is you put the needle inside here, and you should be able to drain it through this Schrader valve here. So you just insert that. So now you just see our pressure rise. So it says now that there's about 100 pounds in it. So you want to depressurize it completely. Let's see if I can. Maybe it's a little bit hard to do this on the camera, so. So now this becomes the Schrader that you depressurize. It takes a lot longer because that needle has such a small orifice or whatever. It takes a lot longer to drain the nitrogen. Alright, so now you're completely drained. So now you pull that out. Put that off to the side where you're not going to stick yourself with it. And now it's the same kind of deal. So now I'm going to put this back in the vise there, and I'm going to push this dome down, and then there's a circlip in here. I'll take that out, and I'm not 100% sure how this is supposed to come out of here. I don't think there's any room to pry it out with a screwdriver, but what I'd probably do is just I might push it down, get the circlip out, and then bring it back out on the bench, and then maybe put a little bit of air in it and see if it'll push it out past the ringland there, and then I might be able to get it out of there. Alright guys, back in the vise here. So now I'm just going to see if I can simply just tap this down with the dead blow here. And you don't want to like smash it way too far down. You want to just tap it down enough where you can get that that ring out, because you don't want it to go down in there and get jammed, because this seems like it's kind of difficult to get out. So it looks like I might be able to get it out like that. So how I usually do this is I use 2 screwdrivers. It's going to be really hard to film, but you stick 1 screwdriver in, and then you try and get behind it with another one, and then just pry them out together. Kind of hard to explain what I'm doing here without showing you, but you'll figure it out. Like I said, it helps if you have 2 picks. Got you guys at a bit better of an angle here. See if I can get this out. This ring kind of keeps moving on me, so I might have to get that down a little more. Alright guys, that was a bit of a pain, but I got it there. So now this thing seems to be kind of just popping out by itself here, so had a little bit of pressure left in it, I guess. So that is easy enough. Just getting the ring out is the biggest pain. So you just take it out like that. That bladder actually looks really good, which is good because I don't have a new one. Clean this up a little bit. So now that the bladder's out, now we can move on to getting this cap off. And then there's another circlip inside there, I'll show you that. And then this whole assembly can come out. Alright guys, so to get this part out, there's a tiny hole right here. There's only one of them on this shock. Usually there's two on the other shocks I've worked on, and this hole is really tiny, so you gotta find a suitable punch or a tool to get in there. And then you just put it in the hole, and then you just tap it up. And it should start to separate there. And I have to turn this around so I can get at it a little better. And again, I'm not sure why there's not two holes, but don't want to get a screwdriver involved, but I might have to. Nope. There you go, so that's that. And what I'll usually do is I'll try and pull this up as much as I can, and I'll put a zip tie in right here. And then that'll hold everything up. Then on the inside here, you got to press this little piece down, which I just did with my fingers, so that's good that it's nice and easy. And then you got to get in there with your tools again and push out a circlip, or get out a circlip. Hopefully this one's a little easier. And it was, so that's awesome. So for reference, this circlip here with the wider gap goes to the shock body, and this one with the smaller gap goes to the nitrogen chamber. So now, sometimes this is a bit of a headache, but now you should be able to pull this whole assembly out. Sometimes it's a bit of a challenge to get it past here. Oftentimes I have to set it in the side of the vise and pull that way. Try and avoid banging on it. You always want to get it out of there as least destructive as possible. Yeah, I'm gonna have to reset it up here and try and pull it out from the side. Alright guys, so I got it set up like this. I don't like to hammer on these, so I usually try and pull it out from the side. It might get messy, so you might want to put a catch pan. I'm just putting my garbage right underneath it, so we'll see how this comes out here now. Just like that. It's sometimes pretty hard to get them out of there, so you gotta kind of mess around with it a little bit. And it's not a terrible idea to clean it up. Try and clean it up as it comes out. Do it beforehand is ideal, but sometimes it's not always possible. So just like that, it comes out. Like I said, I put it in the side and pull on it. To pull up on it is, I just find it a lot harder to do. So now I'll just let this drain. And then you can go ahead and back these off. But like I said, when you back these off, make sure when you're done cleaning your shock body here, these go straight back onto it. Because if you forget it, then you have to pull this all out again to put these back on. Alright guys, to get this nut off here, they mushroom out the threads right here. So what I do is, because I'm replacing this whole unit anyway, I just clamp that in the vise. That whole thing is going to be replaced, not just the seals. So now I can just turn it, and as I file, I can just keep turning it. And you got to file all this off to a certain point. Then you can take that nut off sensibly, because if you don't, then you're going to tear the threads out. Alright guys, so I should have this filed down enough where I can get this off now. So probably be a little resistance coming off, but it comes off pretty easily after you grind that all down. So use the 17 mil and just see if you can get it off there. Definitely wish it was easier than that, but for some reason they crush those threads and really makes a mess when they come off. Now what I'll do is I'll usually have a screwdriver handy, so you just put the screwdriver in like that, and then you just take it all off at in one piece there. And then afterwards I'll just I'll loop a zip tie through it and hang it out of the way. But other than that, now you can go ahead and maybe give that a wipe. Try and keep as much stuff. You wanna spray down this hole anyway after with brake clean it all out. But now you can take your seal off. So that's the seal that's leaking inside there. Then I can take my zip tie off for the time being. Take the little cap off. I take a picture just so I remember how this all goes together. And then the bumper. And then that bottom piece there. And now that's all apart there, guys. So that's as far as I'm going to go with this piece. I'm going to probably tape all this off, cover this up as much as I can with tape or whatever. And I'm probably going to go ahead and do some blasting on this, some vapor blasting, make that all look shiny and new again. So, and I'm going to have to recoat the spring. So that's probably as far as I'm going to get for today, for me. Not for the video, but for me, and I'm going to come back at you guys after when I've got everything all cleaned up and ready to assemble. Okay guys, so I worked into the night there. I got everything I needed done here. I got everything blasted. Everything looks great here. I got a fresh powder coated spring here. I got oil. I got everything I need to start putting this shock back together. So we're going to start with the shaft here and start putting that back together. Okay, so now we're ready to start putting the shock shaft back together. So you'll put this piece on first, and then the bumper, and then this cap here. Now you're going to go ahead and put the seal head assembly on. So it'll look like that. But first, I'm going to put this seal bullet on. It's made by Tusk. It just goes over the top like that, because you don't want to put this on and have the threads or this cut up your new seal. So you can use like a piece of plastic or something like that to put over this, or tape, but it's worth the money to buy these seal bullets because it's just super simple. You just put that over like that. You put some oil over it like this. And then this seal just goes on so much easier. And it slides right over. So now that's all done. That was easy. So now you can grab your valve assembly and you can put that over this, and then you can torque the nut down. So I got my little torque screwdriver again here, and usually I just put a zip tie through And then what I'll do is I'll just put this back through it again, like that, and then I'll just cut the zip tie. Then you don't have to worry about anything coming apart on you. And you just put it on like this. Just like that. You're gonna probably have to wiggle these valves through. They're not always gonna line up perfectly for you. Definitely don't get rammy with them. Keep working them on there and they'll go. So I'll give it one last quick blast of brake clean here. So now you can put the nut on here, but I'm going to go ahead and put some Loctite on there. So normally I'll use blue Loctite, but this time I'm going to use red. Something this small only requires blue usually, but you just want a little bit of extra insurance because you don't want your shock falling apart on you. So I put a little bit in the nut. Wipe a little bit out. You don't want too much because you don't want it getting in the valving. Started no problem. So now you're going to torque this down to 27 foot-pounds. And again, this is a 17 mil nut. So you just go ahead and torque that down. And I'll just wipe off the excess Loctite here. Now the service manual says to stake this 3 times in kind of a triangle. So I'm going to grab a punch and just, you want to just stake the threads a little bit so that the nut doesn't start to back off. So we'll do one right here. Tighten that a little bit. One here. And one here. So what that does is it just damages the threads a little bit, kind of flattens them out, so if the nut does start turning, it won't back off. So with all that done, we can set this aside and get the shock body back out here, and we can start filling that with oil, and then we can install this after. So I've got the shock body and the vise here now, guys. This is the part I've been talking about the whole video. This is where you got to put these the jam nut and the adjustment nut on. So the jam nut is gonna, it's got to go a certain way. So I'll see if I can get it to focus here. So you'll see a flat part here, and then you'll see a part with a little land protruding there. So that has to go up like this, because that land is what jams on the adjustment nut. And then of course the collar piece goes up because that's where the string or the spring has to seat on. So that's it for that, guys. The service manual wants you to fill it through the where the valves are here. You got to take this piece out. I don't like taking that piece out because if the O-ring fails, they're super hard to find. I find if you fill these two bodies up here, you can bleed the air just as easy. It's just a little more messy. So I'm going to go ahead and fill these up and bleed the air a little bit. So now that this one's full, I'm going to put the valve assembly in and just push down, and it'll bleed the air out of this, bleed the air out of the valve, pushing it up into this chamber. So I put a little bit of oil on it. And then you'll see the oil come out of there. And you just wiggle it up and down. So when you get it bled, you can just fill the rest of the shock body up and then just push the seal head down in there. Like I said, it'll make a mess, but everything will be bled. And you can just add oil as you go. Alright guys, so I've pumped it up and down several times. I'm not seeing any more air. So what I'll do now is I'll put the seal head in, and I'm going to fill it up just a little bit more. So now when I push this in, it's going to overflow and spill. That's why you have your catch pan ready. And you just want to push it so that it's just far enough where you can get the circlip in. Alright, so I got the retaining ring here. So now you just go ahead and you squeeze it in like this. You're going to have to use a screwdriver or something. Just push this down, just make sure you're going to be able to get that ring in there. And it sounds to me like it has seated. So now you just leave that there for now, because when you put the nitrogen bladder in, it's going to collapse a little bit while it's in there in the oil, and then when you fill it up, it just makes everything, it expands, and there's still no air in the oil, so that everything will just like kind of like this will pop up and the nitrogen bladder will pop up. So I put a little bit of grease around here on the nitrogen bladder. Then you put the dome back in. And you just turn it a little bit like that. Make sure everything's seated properly. Then get your retaining ring ready. And then you just push that in. And it's going to make a huge mess. If you just go slow though, it's not too bad. And that is a good way to ensure all the air is out. Now you want to grab a screwdriver or something to help you out here. And it only goes in so far, so you gotta work with the room you got. But it does seat, so you hear that clicking noise, it is definitely seating in there. So now you can wipe off your shock real good. And then after that, I'm going to put it back on the bench. And then we're going to put some air in it. Now the reason why I put air in is just so I can test the shock. I'm going to drain the air after and then put nitrogen in. But I put about 120, 130 pounds of air in here, just so everything expands properly, and then I can test it and make sure. And I'll show you how I make sure there's no air in the system after I get everything together here. So you put your cap back on, and then clean your shock body off real well, and then you can put it back out on a bench and then put some air in it. Alright guys, now we're going to put some air in it so we can test if the bleeding process went good there. So now you want to go ahead and put this needle valve into the hole here and just insert that in there like that. And I'm going to try and find something to kind of sit underneath this, because this isn't going to work if it's up like that. So we'll put a little something underneath it. So you just take your air nozzle, you just put it on there. You want to charge it up to probably whatever the max your compressor is. This has a tendency to leak sometimes. There you go. So you put it max pressure, and then you can just pull this needle right out. So this should be charged enough where you can test if the bleeding process went good or not. So all you do is just stand it up on the bench. I'll set it up in the vise again if you want to set it up on the bench, and you just collapse it, and then it should extend all the way back out to full extension without having to pull it back out again. So I'll put in the vise and I'll show you guys what I mean. Alright guys, so I got about 120 pounds in it now. That's definitely low, but it's good enough to test whether this thing's returning by itself or not. So how you test if you got air in this shock is you push it all the way down, and it should return up all by itself. And this is why you keep all your valving open so it returns easily by itself. So it's definitely done that. So I'm going to call that good. So I'm going to drain the air out and I'm going to fill it up with nitrogen now. Alright guys, so I went ahead and charged it up with nitrogen. I've got my own setup here, but I recommend that you take it to a shop to do it, because it's quite high PSI. So I went to 165, and that's what Race Tech charges their shocks to. The manual says 142, but I mean, Race Tech knows their way around suspension pretty good, so I just use their spec. So again, you want to compress it and make sure it returns all the way again by itself. And if it does, it means you have no air in the system. So it should come right back up by itself, just like that. So that's to the full stroke. I can't pull it out any more than that. So that's awesome. So that means that there's no air in this system. I can go ahead and put that spring back on. So we're almost done here, guys. Just got to put the spring back on and set it back to the preload that we measured earlier. So again, the bigger end, which is this end, always goes down, because the smaller end will not fit over that adjustment nut. So it'll be nice and easy. My freshly powder coated spring here. So now we're on there. So now you take your ring and you just put it down here, and then you put the circlip in there. Make sure it's all seated. So now when you back this adjustment nut out and push it up in, now that's going to seat in there. And then you put it back to your original settings, and then you tighten your jam nut, and that's it. So there it is, guys. This shock is freshly rebuilt, clean, just like new, ready to go back on the bike. So if you guys want to see that and you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you guys found value in this video, make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment down below, it helps everything out. As always, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.